The alarm began with a low, metallic howl that shook dust from the ceiling. The very walls of the royal keep vibrated under the force of distant explosions, a violent drumbeat announcing the end of an era. Inside the throne room, chaos bloomed. Courtiers, once the picture of refined elegance, scattered in a blind panic. Guards, sworn to protect the crown with their lives, rushed toward the exits without waiting for a single order. Their discipline, forged over centuries of tradition, vanished the moment the outer shield failed. Only one person did not move. The human advisor, a man assigned to the queen as a political courtesy, stood firm while the chamber dissolved into a frenzy. And the queen herself, she remained on her throne, a statue frozen between the weight of her dignity and the icy grip of fear. She watched in disbelief as her sworn protectors, the finest warriors of her empire, fled like frightened animals through the service corridors, their backs turned to their sovereign. Then, the human stepped in front of her. He spoke no word, drew no weapon. He simply positioned himself as a living barrier between her and the approaching danger. The queen saw the absolute determination etched into his posture. It surprised her more than the attack itself. Why was he still here? A deafening blast tore through the west wall, sending a lethal spray of stone shards across the chamber. Without hesitation, the human shielded the queen with his own body, absorbing the impact of the debris. Dust and acrid smoke filled the air, choking the light. Through the haze, the sound of enemy boots echoed down the halls, heavy and rhythmic, a death march drawing ever closer. The queen felt her pulse hammer against her ribs, a frantic rhythm of realization. Her vast, untouchable empire had become vulnerable in a single, terrifying moment. Yet, the human remained steady. His breathing was controlled, a calm ocean in her storm of fear. His eyes, sharp and focused, tracked the direction of each distant footstep, calculating, assessing. The queen couldn't bear the silence any longer. Her voice, though trembling, cut through the din. She asked him why. Why hadn't he followed the others? Why hadn't he run? The human's answer was a simple, unshakable truth. Protecting her was his task. Abandoning her would violate the very core of what he believed a soldier, a protector, should be. The queen stared at him, stunned by the raw sincerity in his voice. Her own warriors, bound by oaths of blood and honor, had left her without a second thought. But this lone human, an outsider, stead though the attackers were infamous for their brutal, unrelenting cruelty. Toward his kind, the enemy breached the inner door. With a firm but gentle hand, the human guided the queen behind a massive fug and PR. She watched, mesmerized, as his mind worked with a calm, chilling precision. He assessed the broken structure, seeing not a ruin, but a fortress. He scanned the floor and his eyes landed on a shattered spear. It was a crude, splintered thing, but when he picked it up, he held it with a sense of purpose that made it seem as deadly as any royal blade. He did not expect to survive. She could see that in his eyes, but survival was not his priority. Duty was. When the attackers burst into the chamber, they saw the human first, and they hesitated. A flicker of uncertainty. Humans had a reputation across the galaxy, a stubborn, almost insane tenacity. Facing one in close quarters, cornered and determined, created a caution that no other species inspired. The human did not speak. He advanced with controlled, deliberate steps, drawing their attention, holding their gaze. The attackers struck. He deflected the first blow with the spear shaft, the impact jarring his entire body. He used the momentum to force the second strike away from the queen. A dance of desperation and skill. He moved with a clarity that seemed to overcome exhaustion and fear, a pure expression of will. The attackers, surprised by his resistance, regrouped. They spread out, preparing for a final, overwhelming rush. Seeing their intent, the queen stepped forward, ready to beg them to stop, to offer herself in exchange for his life. But the human raised one hand, a silent, absolute command. His message was clear. He would face them. She would not. The attackers charged. The human braced himself, a lone bastion against the tide. The chamber filled with the brutal, clattering sound of struggle. Just as his strength began to fail, the roar of incoming reinforcements filled the keep. The Queen's soldiers, a new squad, finally poured in. The enemy, caught between two forces, fled through the breach they had created. When the dust settled, the soldiers found the human standing near the broken pillar. His uniform was torn and stained. His breath came in ragged gasps. Yet he remained upright, alert, his gaze still fixed on the point of entry. The Queen stepped out from behind him. Her protector, the returning guards, the ones who had fled, bowed their heads in shame, unable to meet her gaze. The Queen walked directly to the human. She had to understand. She asked him why. Why risk everything for a ruler not of his species, for an empire not his own? The human's reply would forever change her. He said that leadership meant responsibility, not superiority. If she, the leader, stood her ground, then so would he. The Queen had no response. She had ruled for decades, surrounded by subjects who obeyed her commands out of fear or tradition. She had never encountered a loyalty that emerged purely from choice, from a personal code of honor. In that moment, before every witness in the room, she declared that this human had shown the courage and loyalty her own warriors had failed to uphold. She ordered that he would receive the highest honor of her court, a distinction never before bestowed upon an officer. The human simply bowed, without a hint of pride. Honors were not his goal. He had done only what he believed to be right. Later, when the keep fell quiet again, the Queen stood amidst the ruins of her throne room. She looked at the cracked walls and the scorched stone, and she understood. Empires did not endure through fear or power alone. They were not held together by shields and armies. They endured because of the few who stood firm when every other figure retreated. As she watched the human quietly inspecting the damaged hall, a profound truth altered her perception of his entire species. When all others ran, the human stayed. And that single choice, that simple act of unwavering duty, had saved the fate of her throne. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more tales of courage and honor from across the galaxy.